Hi, students and family. This is Ms. Babcock coming live to you from my house. I am going to be giving the first reading lesson that we have. It's an e-learning reading lesson, but the great thing is you actually have everything you need right at home. So what I need you to do is get out your packet. It's going to be the reading portion of the packet. And inside your packet, you're going to see, when you flip it open, you're going to see something that looks like this. And this is a table of contents, which is going to be really helpful for us in the future because it's going to tell us what lesson we're on and what page we need to turn to. Today, I'm going to have you flip your packet until you get all the way to page number 11. So I'm flipping my page there right now. Let's see, flipping through some of this until I get to page number 11. It's going to say Lesson 7 up at the top, Recounting Stories. I'll give you a second to get there. All right, we're going to dive right into our very first reading lesson, which is all about retelling stories. When you retell a story, you tell what happens at the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, and the end of the story. If you can tell the most important pieces of a story from the beginning, middle, and end, that means you have a really great idea of what happened in the story. So we're going to start by reading a story. It's a fiction story. Fiction means fake, so it didn't really happen. As we read this story, our objective, like I said, is to be able to tell what happens at the beginning, middle, and end of the story. All right. Our first text that we're going to read together is called How the Elephant Got Its Long Nose. These illustrations look pretty silly. I'm excited to dive right in. If you'd like to follow along with me, please do. I'm going to start over here where it says, a long time ago, elephants had short noses. But one day, a crocodile bit a young elephant on the nose. The elephant tried to pull away, but as he pulled, his nose got longer and longer. Look at that illustration. You can see, look at the difference from the first illustration. He's got a short nose. Can you see his nose is getting a little bit longer in the second one? Okay, let's read the last one. When he pulled free, his nose was 5 feet long. 5 feet long. That's as long as a grown man or woman. He didn't like it at first. Then he found out he could do new things with his long nose. He reached into the trees to grab leaves to eat, and best of all, it was fun to take baths. I can tell a huge difference from the way that elephant felt at the beginning of the story to the end of the story just by looking at those illustrations. Can you see in the very first box right here where it shows, look at those eyes. He looks, if I had to use a word to describe him, I would probably say nervous or scared. And then I'm looking at the elephant in the last illustration over here, and his face looks really happy, and he looks like he's really enjoying himself taking his bath. So he definitely changes the way that he feels throughout the story. All right, now remember, I said our objective was to be able to tell what happened at the beginning, middle, and end of the story. So that's exactly what we're going to do, friends. So we're going to flip to page number 12. It's just the very next page in your packet. After you flip to page number 12, you'll see they created this really nice graphic organizer for us. All we have to do is write in with our pencils. I'll be typing, but you'll be writing in with your pencils or pens. I recommend the pencils so you can erase, but it's up to you since you're at home. They have this graphic organizer for us to use, and it starts by having us type in what happened in the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, and the end of the story. Oftentimes, after I read a story, sometimes I'll forget exactly what happened. So if I ever need to go back, I can just flip to the last page that I read just to refresh my memory. At the beginning of the story, let me flip back to that page. Oh, I remember at the beginning of the story. I would have to say the most important thing that happened at the beginning of the story was that a short-nosed elephant got bit by a crocodile on his nose. So I'm going to take my pencil, and down here in our graphic organizer, I'm going to start, of course, with the capital letter. I'm going to start by saying the elephant got bit on the nose by a crocodile. Can't forget that period at the end since I'm all finished with my sentence. All right, that I think was the most important part at the beginning. Now I have to think back to the middle of the story and ask myself, what was the most important thing that happened in the middle of the story? If I forget, which is okay, I can go back up to my text. Oh, that illustration gives me a big clue too. Now I'm remembering that in the middle of the story, the elephant was trying to pull away, but as he pulled, his nose only got longer and longer. Okay, so I can remember what I wanted to write for the middle. I think that the most important thing that happened in the middle of the story was that the elephant tried to pull away, but his nose grew longer and longer. I'm going to put an exclamation point because that's kind of an exciting thing to happen in the story. The elephant tried to pull away, but as he did, his nose got longer and longer. And we're almost finished, friends. We've just got one more piece to the puzzle. The last thing that happened in the story, we have to tell what happens at the end of the story. What was the most important piece at the very end? You know me, I like to go back and look into the text. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to look at the text. Let's move this out of the way. There we go. Okay, but when he pulled free, his nose was 5 feet long. He didn't like it at first, but then he realized he could do new things with his long nose. He reached into the trees to grab leaves to eat, and best of all, it was fun to take baths. Okay, I'm going to take my pencil and go back to our graphic organizer, and I think the most important thing that happened at the end of the story was that the elephant had a long nose now, but he was excited at all the fun things that he could do with his new nose. Okay, let me read that again since that's a long sentence. I said that the most important thing that happened at the end of the story was that the elephant had a long nose, because remember, it stretched longer and longer. He had a long nose, but he was excited at all the fun things that he could do with his new nose. Remember, friends, if I'm going too fast for you, you can always pause the video also to give yourself some more time to write down these things on your graphic organizer. Also, feel free to put them in your own words. All right, I'm going to go back up to the top where we read our story and just remind us what we worked on today. Today for reading, we worked on retelling. When you retell a story, you tell the most important things that happened in the story. At the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, and the end of the story. When you do that and are able to put the story in order to retell what happens, that means you have a really good idea of what went on in the story and are better able to answer questions. I'm so excited that I get to communicate with you on our videos every day, and I hope you liked our first video. Stay tuned for our math, video as well.